You know, I thought that I fully understood the gravity of the situation in Clozier. But boy, oh boy, with the receipt of these videos and pictures, my goodness, it is worse than I thought. If I didn't know better and I saw these pics, I would have thought that this is some picture from World War II of Nagasaki or Hiroshima. This is how chaotic and disastrous looking that this site is. And much kudos, and I really appreciate what Jack Butcher and Associates have done here. They've actually did a thorough site investigation, thorough site pictures, and went into the bushes, into the farmer's land to show all the soil shear failures that exist in the land right now. Now that is amazing. And the width of those failures testifies to the depth of the soil shear failures. So it's quite obvious. All the dilly-dallying, all the sugarcoating, all the intellectual dishonesty that is being done right now and trying to blame some sort of water main for what happened on that site. Guess what? You guys are playing with fire. The more you continue to be intellectually dishonest is the more dangerous this site will become. And I'm kind of wondering here if you guys would not be satisfied until somebody gets hurt. So keep going ahead with the cover-up. Keep spewing the lies. Keep trying to deceive Grenadians about what is happening at Clozier. And let's see if that gets us in the right direction on this project. If we want to play games and we don't want to accept the reality and say, okay, look, this was the mistake that was made. Now let's move on. And this is what we're going to do. A, B, and C. No one has to take my advice, but common sense should prevail. And a lot of what I've said is grounded in sound engineering advice and common sense. And I dare anyone to dispute what I've said. I dare anyone to challenge what I have said, including the people that you've hired to do quote-unquote outside consulting and corrective measures. I dare them to challenge what I have said. The more this happens and the more this continues, it gets me more and more upset and saddened by the situation. Because there are things that can be done that I suggested that would drastically turn the situation around on the site. And I see what you're doing. You're not fooling me. And it makes me very suspicious, especially with the design of that retaining wall. Because I see you're adding passive pressure behind the retaining wall. You're trying to sort of prop up the retaining wall by adding that additional pressure, and you'll see it in the videos, adding all that additional soil support. So it makes me believe that you do not believe that the retaining wall is properly designed or is sufficient to hold the new roadway and embankment with vehicles passing on top of it. The question is, was that retaining wall checked for a situation where you might have had an H20 loading passing over the roadway? Or, quite possibly, who's to say, HS20 loading? Have you checked this for a box truck passing through that road? Have you checked this for a truck loaded with sand or gravel passing through that road? Nowadays, there's the heavy vehicles passing all over the place. What if someone is building a house somewhere way up in Clozier and then a truck with gravel or a truck filled with sand has to pass through that road? Is that retaining wall going to be able to take it? So your outside consultants, instead of coming and say, oh, well, the retaining wall is sufficient and doesn't need no more analysis, that I am very suspicious of. Because if your outside consultants had come and said, okay, well, I think we're going to do some manual analysis, or we're probably going to do some modeling with a software or something like that to check to see if that retaining wall is sufficient, and that can be done. But they didn't say that. It says, oh, I think it's sufficient, without doing any concrete design checks. You approve and say, oh, well, the retaining wall doesn't need any more analysis. When you would have known that no technical data was used in the design of the retaining wall. It means that all the fundamental data that was required were based on assumptions. And as you outside consultants may know, if you're dealing with dry soil behind a retaining wall, then guess what? It's only one load distribution. However, if you're dealing with a soil that's waterlogged or has a water table, guess what? You have about force distribution behind the retaining wall. Was that considered? As a matter of fact, is it true that elders in the community has suggested that there's a Mount Felix Road as an alternative route that needs a little bit of work to be used to alleviate some of the problems that the people of Clozier are experiencing, and that was utterly shut down? Is that true? And then we come and we do all this shenanigan, and then we say, oh, we care about the people of Clozier. If you truly cared about the people of Clozier, you wouldn't continue with your manje puppet. You know what's manje puppet? It's like when you were a kid and you play with mud and you turn it into figurines and you pretend it's plate and you're serving breakfast and all that sort of stuff. I don't know if you guys know about that, but when we were kids, we did that. And that's what the site is. It has become a manje puppet. So continue with the manje puppet. Let's see how far that'll get. Continue to cover up. Continue to deceive. Continue to lie. Anyway, take a look at these pics and take a look at these videos. And this thoroughly captures what is actually happening at Clozier. And again, thank you, Mr. Jack Butcher and Associates. And there you're seeing that pic where they're trying to put some additional soil at the back of the retaining wall to add some sort of extra passive pressure to sort of help prop up the retaining wall. If you notice here, the pathway for people to walk through is actually getting narrower and narrower by the day. Because you see that top slope? It is actually also failing because the roadway embankment failed. So there's no passive pressure holding up that top slope. That too is going to fail. And further behind that top slope, what would have been the other side of the roadway, behind the bushes into the land, there's massive shear failure. Because there is nothing holding the soil in place. So what will have to happen now, as the Prime Minister said, on the other side of the road, what would have been the other side of the road, retaining walls will have to be built there also. And there it is. The soil will continue to move. There's nothing holding it back, especially where that man's house is.
See, that's another place again. Okay, keep going.
And here you're going through the farmer's land. That's on the upper slope.
Keep going.
Look at the size of that shear failure. Look at the width of that shear failure. That just tells you how deep that shear failure actually is. What you gonna do to fix this man's land? What you gonna do?
Slide everywhere. All in the back here. In the land, you slide. All here drop. All here sliding. You see?
Whoa, look at that massive shear failure.
Yeah. All here.
Now that's why I tell you, Jack Butcher did an amazing job. Because no one showed this to us. This man's land is freaking devastated now.
So all that keep going. And not only one spot. The whole ground.
See right along the shear failure? You know how deep that shear failure runs? That whole aspect of that slope could collapse. And then you have guys working in the bottom of that slope. So there you have it, my friends. Instead of focusing on site stabilization, they're still just plowing ahead when I've said that the first order of business should be, and this is just common sense. If you have an unstable slope, what should be your first order of business? Slope stabilization before you do anything else. But instead, they're just plowing along, excavating away, trying to build the wall away. That is not the way to go.